Holy shit, Martin.
Oh!
That's the other building. That's terrorists.
Other building?
That's terrorists, bro. That's fucking terrorists.
Holy shit!
Really do tell the story that sort of the most horrifying aspect of this particular crash scene is how little debris is visible. There is a large crater in the ground, and I'm hoping that you all are seeing it as I'm talking about it, but that's really all you see.
The footage you just saw was first-hand accounts of the horrors that occurred in the United States on the 11th of September 2001. Along with thousands of other videos, photos, and eyewitness documents, the world has been able to piece together exactly what happened that day. We now know that 2,996 people were killed that day. 246 of the victims were from the planes themselves, 125 from the Pentagon, and 2,606 from the World Trade Center and the area surrounding. This includes 72 law enforcement officers, 343 firefighters, and 55 military personnel. Following the attacks, 1,140 from the surrounding area have been diagnosed with cancer, and 11 unborn babies were killed. Over $10 billion worth of property damage were caused, along with a total of $3 trillion worth of expenses. Osama bin Laden was named the leader behind it all. But what if this was false? What if that wasn't the cause? What if the cause was something else? What if this horrific day in human history was caused by the US government itself? In this program, we will be investigating the government's actions before, during, and after September the 11th, searching through the facts, the documents, and the conspiracy theories to figure out what is false and what is true.
Do solemnly swear.
I, George Walker Bush, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
Congratulations.
President George Walker Bush was elected and inaugurated as the 43rd President of the United States on January 20th, 2001. Portraying himself as a compassionate conservative, George Bush campaigned for things like cutting taxes, improving education, and aiding minorities. Interestingly, however, he also campaigned for the increase in the size of the United States Armed Forces. In fact, this point was mentioned numerous times in his inaugural speech.
And reward the effort and enterprise of working Americans. We will build our defenses beyond challenge, lest weakness invite challenge. We will confront weapons of mass destruction so that a new century is spared new horrors. The enemies of liberty in our country should make no mistake. America remains engaged in the world by history and by choice.
Interestingly, predecessing President Bill Clinton only briefly mentioned this topic in his 1997 inaugural speech.
We will stand mighty for peace and freedom and maintain a strong defense against terror and destruction. Our children will sleep free from the threat of nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons.
This is despite the previous World Trade Center bombing in 1993 and the Oklahoma City car bombing in 1995, both acts of terrorism. Perhaps this is merely a coincidence. But why would George Bush find securing the law enforcement a bigger issue than Bill Clinton would have? That is something to consider. Regardless of this, George W. Bush's plans were not fully achieved come September 2001. 9 months into his presidency. specifically September 11th, 2001. September 2001 was a busy month for the American government, the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA, and the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD. Throughout this month was a series of air drills and military games, many of which were scheduled on for September 11th. On September 11th, 2 drills were scheduled. Global Guardian, an annual drill to test and validate nuclear command, control, and execution procedures, and Vigilant Guardian, a semi-annual drill which stimulated bombings and hijackings. Yes, on September 11th. Also scheduled around this time was a bioterrorism drill and a drill in which supplies were prepped in order to aid an entire city's worth of people. And this is where it starts to get very intriguing. Air traffic control tapes from 9/11 chronicle the day from the point of view of air traffic controllers, Air Force personnel, the military, and even from the flight attendants on board the hijacked planes themselves.
I can't hear you.
Sure. What is your name?
Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on flight 11.
Okay.
And the cockpit is not answering their phone. And there's somebody stabbed in business class, and we can't breathe in business class. Somebody's got mace or something.
Can you describe the person that you said someone is what in business class?
Our number 1 got stabbed. Our purser is stabbed. Nobody knows who stabbed who, and we can't even get up to business class right now because nobody can breathe. Our number 1 is stabbed right now.
Okay.
And our number 5, our first class passengers, our first class galley flight attendant, and our purser has been stabbed.
It's unsurprising that these tapes show the actions of the military and the government. However, these tapes also show some oddities. Take a listen.
Hey, Cape, Dan Winnicott from Washington. I have a situation with American 11, a possible hijack. American 11? Yes, sir. Departed Boston, went to LAX. Right now he's south of Albany. I'd like to scramble some fighters to go tail him.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk to others here.
Okay, and just put if he wants, just depart, and we'll put a flight plan in for him, and we'll aim him towards Hampton, direct.
Pick up the phone. American 11. Okay, I'll talk to these guys over here and see what we can do.
Okay.
And right now he's on the ground in Albany?
No. He's right now southwest of, he's airborne about 40 to the south of Albany, primary only.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to him right now. And who's this here?
Dan Bueno from Washington, TMU.
Dan, TMU. Okay.
All right?
All right, TJ.
All right.
Just weapons, Sergeant Powell.
Hi, Boston Center, TMU. We have a problem here. We have a hijacked aircraft headed towards New York, and we need you guys we need someone to scramble some F-16s or something up there to help us out.
Is this real world or exercise?
No, this is not an exercise, not a test.
Okay, hey, hold on 1 second, okay?
Yep.
Hey, seriously, be kind.
Hi, this is Major Deskins.
Hi, Joe Cooper, Boston Center. We have
Joe.
a hijacked aircraft headed towards the New York metro area. Wondering if you could send someone up there, some F-16s or something, and help us out. Maybe
metro.
out of Otis.
Do you have a mode 3 on it?
No,
Do you have a mode 3 code?
It's just a primary target only. We lost the mode C on it. So you'd have to get up in the air, and we'd have to vector you towards the aircraft.
Okay, so you'd want to control the intercept because
we have to, yeah.
You have
until
right.
you guys pick him up on primary radar.
Okay, so you have a general location as to where he is.
We're still tracking him right now.
You're tracking him. Can you give me a rat long where you think he is just for RSA?
Yeah, hold on a second.
What you just heard and saw were the first moments that the government found out about what was happening on the day of 9/11. This was communication between the air traffic controllers and the Air Force Base. But, as you can tell, the information was not easily reciprocated. Let's go through a timeline of events. At 8:14, Flight 11 stops communicating with the air traffic controllers at Boston's Logan Airport. It was quickly realised after this minute that something had gone wrong. At 8:20, Betty Ong, a flight attendant on Flight 11, contacts the American Airlines reservation desk back at the airport. From there, Betty Ong's phone call was linked with the one from the air traffic controllers, and it was made clear that a hijacking had in fact taken place. However, it is at 8:38 that Boston Center contacts NORAD for the first time. This is 28 minutes after the communications were first halted between Flight 11 and the air traffic controllers, and 18 minutes since Betty Ong contacted the reservation desk. Then, it is at 8:40 that authorization is given for planes to be scrambled. 6 minutes later, Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Despite the fact that there is 32 minutes between when the hijacking took place and when the plane crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center, the government took little to no action against this. 32 minutes. Could it have been prevented? Or, even if the government did take action, would it have helped at all? And, while it's important to note that the transponder, which shows the air traffic control radar, the altitude and area that the plane is in, was turned off, it becomes an irrelevant point when you look later on the day. However, we'll get to that soon. We can't use the point of the transponder when we look at Flight 175, the second plane to crash into the South Tower. Because, unlike Flight 11, it was never turned off. It was around 30 minutes after Flight 175 took off from Logan Airport when it was hijacked. The time was around 8:42 to 8:46. However, it took around 4 minutes until New York base's air traffic controllers noticed anything was wrong. The issue of the transponder is still apparent when we look at Flight 77 and Flight 93. After Flight 175 crashed into the Second World Trade Center, it became known across the entirety of the US, and especially New York, that there was hijacking situations with the possibility of more. Even when Flight 77, which crashed into the Pentagon, and Flight 93, which crashed into Shanksville, Pennsylvania, turned off their transponders, it is now known that there were still eyes on their path. The American Secret Services holds radars which can pick up what normal air traffic control radars can't. And it seems these Secret Service radars picked up the flight paths of these two planes. So what does all this mean? What does it have to do with the government? Well, all this information leaves us with plenty of questions. Was the government to blame for the lack of communication? Was it to blame for never stopping the planes? It's easy to question how it took so long for the air traffic controllers of the government air traffic officers to react to the hijacking, especially when we consider that the Secret Services were involved. But their part was minor. It could have been bigger. It could have saved hundreds of lives. In fact, all we have to look at is George W. Bush's reaction when he is first told about the planes hitting the towers.
60 on page 153. At the count of 3, everyone should be on page 153. If the yellow paper is on the bottom.
George Bush then sat there in silence for 7 whole minutes. This is after watching the first plane hit the first tower on TV beforehand. Yet, for some reason, Mr. Bush decided not to cancel his plans despite the fact hundreds of people had just died. As a side note, let's listen to the words the kids were saying just before the second plane hit.
The fast way without making a mistake. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready.
Kit.
Yes, kit. Get ready.
Steel.
Yes, steel. Get ready.
Plane.
Yes, plane. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must.
9/11 caused a severe change in the entire world, but most specifically in the US. The immediate aftermath of 9/11 in America was to wage a war against terrorism. More specifically, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban in Iraq and Afghanistan. Normally not allowed by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, 9/11 was reason enough for it to be allowed. Obviously, this causes theories that George Bush caused 9/11 just to have a reason to fight against terrorism. Also following 9/11, George Bush orchestrated the biggest reconstruction of the US government in history. Such acts included the tightening of law enforcement, bringing up that point from earlier on in his inaugural speech. This act would become known for its allowance of the invasion of privacy, meaning that the government could drop in on phone calls, emails, and other forms of communication. September 11th, 2001. 9/11 would become one of the biggest days in the history of the world. There is still so much unknown about what happened that day, including what happened in the US government. However, this program has now cleared up some of the misconceptions and also proved some of the points about what actually happened. George W. Bush will always have an aura of infamy surrounding him, regarding all the conspiracy theories that still float around the world. While the vast majority of people still believe that Osama bin Laden was the one behind the 9/11 attacks, some still hold belief that it was George W. Bush's orchestration. Either way, either side succeeded.